Bob, what stood out most to you at spring training?
I would say the unified optimism that was there. And it's true every season. If you're ever around these guys in spring training, everybody's got a lot of belief at that point. For the most part, everybody's healthy. They brought in new players, so everybody feels like their chances are great. It was different, though, this year as compared to last year. And I think there's a different belief in their offseason acquisitions. I think some of these guys come with a different level of expectation. Certainly their injuries are a big part of everything we'll talk about this year, because everybody they brought over comes with an injury history. And the conversation becomes, well, if they're healthy, then here's what I expect. Health is a big assumption, but there just seemed to be just a unified, it didn't seem like everybody was parroting the same line. It was just when you talk to each individual player, there was just a different expectation that really came across in the way they answered questions.
What players surprised you the most from spring training?
In terms of their personality, it'd be Ryan Stanek, because I am a notorious Astros hater, and I didn't love him on the Astros. He was up there on the hill, he had the long hair, he had that menacing look, and I just was like, ugh, I couldn't stand the Astros or him because he was wearing that uniform. And then we had him on set, and he was first of all, he looks way better in Mariners gear. Second of all, he was just like really, really thoughtful in his answers. Like he would sit there, he would look you in the eye when you're asking him a question, and then when you're done, you'd see him kind of look down, and you could see the wheels turning. He'd give you a really, really thoughtful answer, and he seemed genuinely excited to be here. And for a guy that's played in World Series, pitched in World Series, played on World Series teams, and then talking to him about this team, he said, I'm seeing the same exact thing here. I'm seeing the belief. I'm seeing the expectation that these guys expect to be in the thick of it. And he talked about the attitude that I was just talking about, that's what stood out to him. But he surprised me because I'd never spoken to him. You have an image of somebody, and then you speak to him, and by the end of the interview, I was like, I think he's one of my favorite guys. When he was with the Astros, I was like, oh, I can't stand this guy. So that's how bad the Astros are. They just really taint your image of somebody.
Who do you think has the most pressure on them this season?
Julio does. He's expected by, we're talking to so many national voices and analysts and writers, and each and every one of them has talked about Julio being obviously the straw that stirs the drink, and they expect him to be in the MVP conversation. Some have picked him to be their MVP. We talked to Mike Petriello from MLB.com. He's his pick for MVP. So that kind of expectation that represents a lot of pressure. But hey, he signed a deal that represents a guy that should be in the MVP conversation. He's being paid and marketed as such, and he's got the ability. We've seen it. He's just got to put it out there for 6 months versus last year. You look at the stats at the end of the season, you go, hey, he had a pretty good season. Well, that was even Service and Julio, when we talked to him, they all said it. That was like 5 weeks. He had 5 great weeks, and then he had just these pockets of nothing, that really obviously didn't help the team get to the postseason. So if he can just be more consistent, if he can do that from beginning to end, and certainly there's going to be ups and downs, but more consistent than last season, this team's going to be in a great spot. But he's the face. He's the most notable figure on this team by a long shot. He's being paid that way. So, yeah, to me, it's an easy answer. He carries the most pressure.
Speaking of expectations, do you think the starting rotation can live up to all these preseason expectations?
Yeah. I mean, again, we throw out health. If they can stay healthy, and we're starting the year with Brian Wu on the IL, so already health is coming into the equation. But if, for the most part, these guys can stay healthy through the season, I don't know how many rotations in baseball you put ahead of them. I really don't. I know, probably the majority of them are in the National League, like maybe you're looking at the Dodgers, maybe American League, maybe the Twins, or, the Astros have a good rotation. I don't think it's as good. But if we're just going depth, 1 through 5, I don't know how many teams you legitimately put in front of them. So I think just based on another year of maturity, another year under their belt, talking about Kirby and Logan Gilbert, and then Brian Wu and Miller getting the experience they got last season, and just watching them in spring training, they came with a different level of confidence as well. So yes, the answer is yes. If they can stay healthy, they are one of the elite rotations in all of baseball.
Look into your crystal ball, and at the end of the season, what will we be talking about?
We're going to be talking about a playoff run. We're going to be talking about this team in the playoffs. Last year to me was playoffs or bust. They didn't make it. What's amazing is as bad and as frustrating as last year was, they missed the playoffs by a game. And we were looking at an offense where you're going, they can't drive anybody in. They're runners left in scoring position. You look at the numbers with left on base and runners in scoring position, they were a disaster. They were terrible. Yet they missed it by one game. The only player that they brought over in the offseason that was still on the team at the end of the year was Teoscar Hernandez. A.J. Pollock was gone. Cooper Hummel was gone. Tommy LaStella was gone. Colton Wong was gone. You got nothing from those guys, and you still missed it by one game. So fast forward to now, you got Polanco, you got Garver, you got Mitch Haniger, who, if healthy, is a difference maker. Luke Raley. I feel like it's a longer, deeper lineup. If healthy, people get tired of that, but that's the key to this. They're going to be in the playoffs.